Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Survivor 50 Wishlist Podcast, an off-season series where we're trying to figure out who could and should come back for the upcoming returning season of Survivor 50. And this is huge. We needed this as we are talking Survivor Cagayan, one of the most memorable, legendary, best top-tier seasons in Survivor history, one that has produced a good amount of top-tier players, returnees, winners, but who do we want to see come back for this milestone season? All that in due time. But first, so excited to bring on a top tier guest to talk about a top tier season. I don't think he speaks llama, but he certainly herds llamas, or at least the equivalent of them when it comes to playing all the Blood on the Clock Tower games on his Twitch stream. So excited to be joined by Survivor 43 contestant Dwight Moore.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about the season. This is going to be a fun one to talk about. And I was looking at the cast. I was like, oh, like a third of them have already played the second time. So this is going to be an interesting one to narrow down to 3 or 4 when casting themselves had already brought 6 of them back. So this is going to be a fun one to talk about. I'm excited to go through this season. And also talk about people who also haven't returned from the season that I think will also be a great shot at 50. So I'm excited to talk about this.
Oh, me as well. I mean, it's always interesting with the really good seasons in that, you kind of have to balance between, okay, how many of these constant returnees / borderline legends do we bring back versus how many of these like diamond in a rough one-time players do we bring out of 2014 into 2024? Also, should note we are past the 10-year anniversary of Cagayan, which is wild. I mean, Cagayan is an incredibly special season, not just for this podcast, as this was in the RHAP history of things, was when Rob officially became a full-time podcaster and never looked back. That's when the Patreon started. And so he really went all in on Survivor coverage. That's when he was doing upwards of like 5 podcasts a week. But if you look at that time in Survivor history, I mean, we had gone through the dark ages, and there were certainly seasons like Philippines was great. People enjoyed parts of Caramoan. Blood versus Water certainly took off better than expected. Yes, we look at the theme, brains versus brawn versus beauty, and we're saying, okay, like there's a classic dichotomy, and then you kind of shoehorned a third in there. Obviously, they really enjoyed the 3-tribe dynamic from Survivor Philippines that got brought back from Survivor All-Stars, so they wanted to do it again. So they made now a third party in this dichotomy by adding beauty into there. And sometimes, I know certainly when we were looking at the cast, we realized that beauty was not only skin deep, that it can exist in many forms. But I mean, the iconic nature of this season was there from the jump. Within the first episode, we have Tony finding his first of many idols. We have the iconic utterances of cute, not hot. We have the beginning of the rapid descent of the Brains tribe. I mean, when you have an episode conclude with somebody basically losing a challenge entirely for their tribe, dumping out the food supply into the campfire in a moment of anger, not even retribution at the idea of being voted out, and then they're not even voted out, and instead one of the most outspoken members is voted out with an idol in his pocket. That is already the makings of an incredibly special season, and it really did not let up, culminating in one of the biggest characters to ever win the show, someone who would go on to become the second 2-time winner in Survivor history. Dwight, I'm so intrigued from your perspective. Give me your thoughts on Cagayan, both in the moment and now a decade later.
So watching the season for the first time, so when it aired, I think I was 13 or 14.
Woo!
So yeah,
my bones are turned into dust as you said that.
Aging all the viewers, my bad. But no, it was such a good season when I watched it. Like this was around the point where I watched the show for a while, but this around the time I was like, I want to actually play this show. This is such an engaging season. I'm like, this is something I think I could do. This is like maybe I wouldn't be able to. This cast is wild. I'd be like, what would I do if I was in this position? What would I do if I was on a tribe where the rice got dumped out? What would I do?
Would you pull a Lindsay and just quit the game?
Yeah, it's possible, thank God I didn't. But there's so many things. There's like, what would I do in this situation? And the cast of characters on this season just gives you so many like wild scenarios of like, how would I as a player deal with this? And it was so exciting to watch. And also like even up until the end, just like the final immunity challenge, it's the winner could have changed if the person who won that challenge lost that challenge. Like so many things on the season. It's like you can debate about, did he make a mistake? and at the end, where so many votes were critical, like could have changed to give several different points. This is like such a season. Like to watch it back to, I was pulling up the wiki and everything, watch some clips to prepare for the podcast. I'm just like, this season is so good. I don't want to have to narrow this down to 3 or 4. Like, can I just like submit can I just send everyone? Can I just be like all 18? Y'all.
Okay, Mr. Participation Trophy. I don't even know if you're a millennial technically, but that feels very evocative of it. No, I mean, this really is a top tier cast. It does feel like everyone is doing their job when it comes to their initial tribe division. Certainly helps with the theme. And there is so much stuff going on in Survivor Cagayan. And I don't think it's any coincidence, Dwight, that when Netflix started putting Survivor seasons out there, it was Cagayan and it was Heroes versus Villains.
This is regarded as a top tier season by the entire fandom, and for good reason. So
yeah,
I'm super excited to go through this and go through everybody one by one.
Well, I know you said you want to let all 18 people on here, but let me ask about one in particular, yourself. Just to get this on the record, I've been doing this with all the alumni who have appeared. Would you want to come back for Survivor 50?
I mean, if they called me, yeah. But if they called me, yeah, duh. Of course I'd go back. But I'm realistic. My cast had some amazing people on it. I think there's a lot of people on my cast who I think are more likely to get called and should 100% be on 50. Without a doubt. So yeah, would I love to? Yes, but my cast has amazing game players, amazing characters. I think a lot of them deserve to be on.
I mean, maybe if they did a rival season and Cody said no, you could be partnered with Jesse.
Surely, yeah. Cody
the on-island marriage got broken up. You can reconcile.
Yeah, no. These guys like calling me like, "Yo, don't answer any phone call." No, for sure. Don't answer any LA numbers. They're all scammers. Please.
Well, let's
take a certain theme for sure.
Well, let's talk about a very different final two. One that was boldened with friendship, a marriage that did last until the end, and the two that really dictated the entire post-merge by just flipping back and forth at literally every single vote in the process. Of course, the final two in Survivor history, Tony and Woo. So we got to start with Tony. And again, I cannot state enough for those that were not watching in the moment how shocking this was.
Yes.
Because these guys do not win Survivor. Tony is a ridiculous character. When he came on initially onto the season, you looked at his muscles and you look at his tattoo and you're like, okay, he makes sense on the Braun tribe. He's just going to be one of these like big, bald alpha males. We're not expecting that much of him beyond. Nobody could have anticipated the Tasmanian devil of Tony Vlachos. Within the first episode, again, he finds his first idol and he provides ADR for like a softcore porno in response to it. Tony is doing things like declaring a Final 5 alliance in response to winning a challenge in blatant view of everybody. He is going to get approached by a cop who asks if he's a cop, and he will lie directly to her and say, no, I'm not a cop, I'm a construction worker. And then a day later say, okay, I actually am a cop, and I swear on my badge I won't get rid of you, and then does proceed to get rid of her at the merge. He is somebody who is going to just wake up in the morning and say, I think I'm going to come up with a reason to target this person today. Most of the time being some of his closest allies. He is somebody who's going to get into multiple altercations with one particular person where he is going to bleat animal noises at them. This man should not have won Survivor, to the point where going into the final episode, I remember Rob was doing a podcast with Cochran, and like Cochran floated out the idea of, maybe Tony could do something like this, but everyone balked at it. This guy was playing way too big, taking too many swings. Surely he was going to strike out. But leave it to Tony Vlachos to make the impossible possible. He convinces Woo at the last minute to take him, honor and integrity, let the best of the best fight it out, and Tony was the victor handily. And so it's one of these rare cases, I would say, maybe besides Sandra, of like a massive character winning Survivor. On top of that, Game Changers, he tries to do the same thing, and it fails spectacularly.
Not having it.
But then Winners of War is a pretty damn good end to the sandwich here, as he just like absolutely lays waste, winning 4 individual immunities, surviving extortion, finding idols, yet again crafting some of the biggest blindsides in Survivor history. And so he wins handily in the end. Dwight, are we adding another layer of meat to that sandwich?
Here's my debate on this one. Because like obviously Tony's like, the base you have like quote unquote have to include him. He's won twice. He won Winners at War. He won the all winners season. So like he is a legend of the game. Full stop. So legend, he needs to be on the show. But would he accept it? Because he's won the winners season. What more do you need to prove? I think like they should call him 100%. I don't know if he'd accept it. I'd love it if he did. I'd love to see him play again because like his game from Cagayan, 2 game changers, but I'm been Cagayan the Winners at War. He added like the ability to win challenges. I don't think he won a single individual immunity in Cagayan. He goes to win 4 in Winners at War. So, and he's on the like specifically Cagayan. He was able to win this Brains Brawn Beauty season as one of the people on Brawn without winning individual immunity ever, controlling the game the whole time. And like you would think this is like a bigger guy, being a character. They have several reasons to target him throughout the game. Like, why do you not target this absolutely like jacked guy who is causing chaos, getting in arguments, and he survives? What is that? So yeah, he is someone who definitely should be on 50. I would love to see him on 50. Once again, it's the argument of he's won twice. Does he have a realistic chance of surviving a day out there? Like, if you're a player, you're like, oh, cool. Oh, why are you leave? I'm not dealing with this. Like, you're great to watch on TV as a player. No, get out. But yes, that's definitely someone like I think they should for sure call him. I think if they don't call him, I'd be surprised if they didn't at all.
So let's talk through a couple things here because, of course, the other big elephant in the room is that Tony is going to be appearing on our screen sooner rather than later. We know he was confirmed for the cast of The Traitors Season 3. And I know there were some questions with him, with Jeremy, with Boston Rob, with Carolyn as to like, would it break their contracts to appear on, season 50, filming next year, but a couple years from now. But Dwight, I think you could speak to this more recently than Christian, who I also talked to about this. I would imagine their contracts would either allow for it to happen or like would be outright done before season 50 had filmed.
I actually don't. Like in my experience, I think the contracts are like for Peacock, I feel like 2 years, so that would lock them out. But I'd also imagine Peacock, given that when they went to go film this show, the news of Survivor 50 being returnees was known. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine there weren't some negotiations of I want to be able to film 50 if necessary. So I would like genuinely, I would imagine that there is, if they want them on 50, they will get on 50. I don't think there's any reason for them to lock each other out or for Peacock to lock them out. I don't think there's any reason for them not to have asked for a contract modification of let me out before 50 would have filmed. Like these people like are Survivor legends. I can imagine they have the wherewithal to negotiate a contract.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt in my mind that they want to be on 50, they will be on 50. Peacock ain't stopping that.
And for what it's worth, I don't know if anyone has asked Tony about it recently. He has retired recently from the police force, so he certainly will have more time and maybe is looking for another reason to make some more moolah. $2 million is a hefty chunk of change, but not one to sustain you for the rest of your life.
$3 million.
And in the moment after Survivor Winners at War, when asked if he would return, Tony made a joke about it tongue-in-cheek, saying, oh yeah, I'll come back, Seniors Edition, Survivor Seniors Edition. But he did specifically say that he would come back for season 50. So that's like the Doctor Strange 1 scenario, right? We've talked about this with Boston Rob, with Parvati. Sandra, I think, of the quote-unquote Mount Rushmore is the most game to come back as long as they have her number. But for me, it's also a bit of, we put all these other people on. If it was a legend season and if he knew these people were coming back, who's to say Tony wouldn't join them?
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see him come back. I didn't know he said he would come back to 50, so that's even better. Love that.
Any thoughts about Wu? Was Wu the favorite of 13-year-old Dwight Moore?
So when I was watching it live at the time, I was more so rooting for Tasha and then Tony and Spencer. I think those were 3 I remember liking the most in that order. Wu, I just remember being upset at the end. I was like, what the hell are you doing? The final decision with the final immunity. I was just very questioning of that. And then, so he came back for second chances, correct?
Yes, he did. And he ended up being the last pre-merge boot. Right.
So, I think of all the returnees, they went in almost inverse order, I'm pretty sure. However well they did the first time, they did inverse order the second time. So he went home pre-merge in second chances. I think he could do well if he came up 50. I'm just not sure. There's a lot of people in a similar position, young athletic guy who would probably do well in challenges. So I could see I think he would do well on 50. I think he'd be fun returning on 50. kind of redemption from Second Chances season for sure. I guess if you return like more as a strategic game would be cool to see. Like what kind of evolution do you make strategically? Because I think that was the biggest question mark for people after the quote unquote $1 million blunder in Cagayan and then Second Chances going home much earlier than he did the first time. But yeah, no, I think it'd be an interesting return to 50 as well, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was certainly one of those X factors in Cambodia alongside Keith, which is one of the most like strategy heavy seasons in Survivor history. But you did have someone like Wu trying to navigate things, after Spencer and Serene burning him, they come back to him being like, oh, vote alongside us. It's like, what the hell just happened? And then he ends up merely going because there was going to be this big plan to get rid of Spencer, but then Sierra ends up getting testy because she is the decoy vote. And so Wu goes in the process. It's not even at the hands of Abby Maria after he voted for her twice, but he's part of two of the most hyper gamey seasons in Survivor history. And he is just not that whatsoever, lovingly so. He's a guy that's going into hypersonic mode and just dashing all over the place and digging into immaculate ribs. And so I always am appreciative of those characters who bring those different types of aspects to the show. Like, I don't know how much more I need to see of Wu, nor do I think is he so popular enough that it would warrant a third try. I loved him being on Cambodia because I think there was this unfinished business of, you made one of the worst decisions in Survivor history. Here's how you can improve upon it. But maybe it was just not seeing a lot of follow-up that allowed me to not want to take another bite of him, unlike those ribs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move into our jury here because the hits keep on a-coming here. So working our way down, we have 2 second chancers and 2 rivals in the form of Kass and Spencer. We have Tony's closest ally in Trish. We have a second chancer that goes to the end with Spencer in Tasha. We have the last beauty standing in Jeffra, secret male model in Jeremiah, the horse trainer who becomes one of Tony's first post-merge victims in LJ. We have, of course, the seductress herself, Morgan McLeod. And we have the winner of Survivor Game Changers and our fallen angel from Survivor Winners at War in Sarah Lacina. So I figured it'd be easiest to start with our returnees just to sift through who would come back and who wouldn't. Where do you want to start here, Dwight?
I'm going to start with Kass here.
Okay, let's start with Kass.
So yeah, we had Kass who, yeah, I think there's still, I'm not sure if the debate was ever settled officially, but in the event that Wu takes Kass to the end of who wins that season, I am not up to date on it. Is it like Wu would have won for sure? I'm not sure how that ever got settled. Like, do people know exactly?
I don't know, because Kass continues to claim that she would have been the one to win it, but yeah. I think the jury has corroborated that they feel like Wu made like the 100% wrong decision and that he would have obviously stood a much better chance, at least, against Kass than he would have against Tony.
Yeah, Kass was, if I recall, like reviled by her castmates when this was filming. I think she had not the best chance of winning. She could have won potentially, but definitely had a strong game. Ended up winning some clutch immunities near the end, if I recall. She has
that awesome Final Four immunity where she comes from behind, where she's all the way back at the first stage of the challenge and passes all the guys on the puzzle.
Yeah, that was extremely impressive. I would love to see Kass. When I was looking at this, I think she was one of the first 2 that came to mind in terms of someone I wanted to 50. Because like I said, her story on that season was good. Her story on Second Chances, if I recall, she was trying to work more with the like people she quote unquote wronged, I guess.
Campaign package, right? Was her reading how to win friends and influence people. So she tried to come in, I think a calm Kass was her personality that she tried to embody within Survivor Second Chance. So I think once the merge hit, it kind of became Chaos Kass and became a crotchety Kass when it came to Andrew Savage joining the jury.
Yeah. But for sure, no, she was like very fun to watch on Cagayan and Second Chance. I think she would do well on a third chance. Of like the people here, she's one of the top ones in my opinion that I'd like to see come back. But how do you feel about Kass?
I mean, I adore Kass. I love the fact that also it was a little bit of like an eye raise. I remember initially with her being on, just because like she seemed like such a different personality than everybody else on this season. But good God, she brought it so early on. Whether it's her getting betrayed in the very first vote with David Sampson and then deciding to turn things back onto Garrett. Kass showed in that moment how she is willing to flip on a dime. And boy, howdy, did that show at the merge vote, where, again, outside of Cochran, it's tough to find someone who makes that move on their own without letting anybody else know. And so Kass did, and it ran her all the way to the end of the game. Kass is so unapologetically herself, which is what we adore from a Survivor contestant. She does not mince words. If you follow her on social media, you know that, and she brings that on the screen as well. Kass, if she were to play today, would be 52, which is certainly, I definitely on the older side of like new era contestants, but certainly not on the older side of these contestants in general, especially the ones that we have been putting on. And perhaps most importantly, if asked if she would want to play again, Kass replied on Twitter a couple months ago, depends on the filming schedule. My daughter graduates high school in 2026. And she also said with Rob at last fall when she was on a podcast that basically for her, she kind of puts herself in the camp that you were ascribing to Tony of like, if I go, there's a very sizable chance I get voted off as one of the first couple of people. And so my appearance fee has got to be a good chunk of change to get me in that sand in the first place. And that's the lawyer in Kass, right? Trying to not have a nice plea deal out of it.
Fair. And also, one point I do want to make, because you mentioned Kass's age. This season 50 Kass, I expect, is going to be at much higher average age than most casts. So I don't think that's much of a. I know we're going to talk about more people on this season. And I think that's going to be something that may play a factor for some, but I don't think it's going to play a factor of 50 because everyone's going to be older just by nature of being all returnees. It's going to be an older cast.
Or just the nature of time itself.
All return seasons are going to have naturally older average age and possibly the oldest. What's the oldest average age season so far? Is it Winners at War?
Probably Winners at War or Cambodia. Cambodia, the second season Kass play was very similar, where we brought back a lot of these old school players, and they were all obviously at least 10 years older and 10 years wiser in some cases. So if they do decide to bring back old school players, which they definitely should, if you're listening, it would certainly be that case. I also know that Kass has done a lot in the 9 years since she's played. If you've been following her on her podcast appearances, she had this horrific procedure where she got a pacemaker, but then is actually suing the doctor for malpractice. She's taken in a couple of foreign exchange students as well with her husband. So Kass has been through a lot of stuff in the past decade that could be very fun for her to narrate to us back on our screens.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to have Kass back. Who do you want to talk about next?
Let's take one step to our right here. We got to talk about Spencer because, I mean, outside of Joe, I cannot think of like a more universal fan favorite contestant in modern Survivor than Spencer. He was the young lad, and it's so interesting because coming in, here was this cocksure 21-year-old, and Jeff said famously that he had a 0% chance of winning the game in the preseason because he was so in love with himself, and he was boasting about how he was the smartest person there and that he was going to trick their minds and everything. And look, everyone fell for it. Everyone fell for the purposely boastful character that Spencer created. Or maybe it's just that due to the hand that he was dealt, Spencer did not become that person. From the get-go, realizing that he was left out of that Garrett vote, Spencer had to claw his way up from the bottom at each and every step. Nearly every vote, his name was brought up for one reason or another, but he was able to scrape by time and time again. And he is the original case. I know that your Survivor 43 cast member, Owen, took this label from him for a brief portion of time, but he was one of the original Survivor Charlie Browns in that it felt every episode he was coming up with some sort of plan or trying some sort of move, and then it wouldn't happen at the end of the day, or Tony would undercut him and do something else. But still, people fell in love with how much of an underdog that he was, to the point where he was a shoo-in for Second Chance. And he does even better in Second Chance. He has one of the highest average placements in Survivor history, considering he finished 4th in Cagayan, 2nd in Cambodia. Cambodia was interesting because we were led to believe that if you talk about people changing their behaviors, Spencer was someone who learned to have a heart, that he was the game bot in version 1.0. In version 2.0, they put the emotions chip in. They brought out his girlfriend at the time, and we realized, oh my God, he has feelings. He's just like us, only for him to get to the final tribal council and just get shut down by that jury, who maybe it was the idea of them not wanting to give the money to a 22-year-old kid, or whether it was just that he had rubbed them the wrong way with his social skills or lack thereof, but it did not go well for Spencer. And what is so interesting, Dwight, is that usually when we talk about how much people have changed between Survivor appearances, we're usually not talking about the person who played at 21 years old. If you have not been following what Spencer has been doing in the past near decade, I heavily encourage people to check it out, much like the heavy amount of drugs Spencer has consumed. Where now, he experienced, I believe, a bit of a loss after Survivor, not only in losing out on $1 million, but I think also he had a loss in the family as well. And so he went on a very different path. He's into a lot of spiritualism right now, a lot of meditations. He's traveling all over the world, doing these studies and writing books and podcasts all about the mind-body connection and the soul. And again, spirituality. He goes by a different name now. He's going by his middle name, Ryman, which has certainly also led him in his writings to put out some incredibly controversial takes. But yeah, Dwight, it's been a wild thing to see who Spencer has become since Cagayan.
Yeah, no. Ryman is a different person than Spencer for sure. So yeah, it's intriguing in terms of the as a player for Survivor. Like I can't lie, when I was watching, Cagayan, watching Cambodia, he's someone I'm rooting for. Like I hope he does well. I hope he does. And watching him in Second Chance, I was like, I hope he can win that season. And in the end, I was rooting for Jeremy to win. Happy he won. But watching it going through, I was like, okay, you know what? This is someone who, this is so watching the show as when I was younger, whatever, going back to the theme of Brains, Brawn, Beauty, I correlate myself more with the Brains tribe naturally when I was watching the show. So I'm looking through my lives of people who are doing well on the Brains tribe in that regard. And of course, I'm looking at, he makes it the furthest of all the men on the Brains show. So I'm rooting for him naturally. So yeah, he's someone who for sure is a very intriguing game player. The adding the emotions to himself in the second appearance is interesting. Watching that evolution in his personality and his game, how it affects him. Although the facade kind of broke, I think, at that final four when he was kind of get Wentworth further down? Yeah, that facade kind of shut down there. But yeah, regardless, Spencer, specifically Spencer, is very intriguing person, game player. Ryman, I'm not sure we'll get, I'm not sure if I need to see that on Survivor. I'm really not sure. But yeah, it's still an intriguing person, for sure. I loved his 2 appearances on the show, but it's one of those things where I'm not sure if Survivor is right for Ryman as a person at this point,
Well, the person to agree with you would be Ryman himself. And it's interesting because 2020, again, the scuttlebutt is that before it was Winners at War, the theme was going to be some sort of rival season. And
right.
Spencer was asked, and he said yes to it. And even in his quarantine questionnaire at the time when asked if he would play again, he said, on that question, I'll give you a hard ... maybe, wink emoji. I said yes to 40 before it became all winners, but I would have said no this summer. It's possible in the future, but the time and circumstances have to be right. He has pedaled that back and then some very recently, actually. I found an interview that he did 4 months ago on a YouTube channel called The Zeal of Man about his time on Survivor, where he says, and when asked if he has any interest in going back on Survivor and sort of getting a bigger platform to talk about the messages that he's been espousing, he says, no interest, really. If that were the best way for me to reach people and accomplish my goals, I would. I'm not anti-Survivor, but I think there's no chance it'll be the way to do it. I have a voice that I can use now independently, not through the filter of what they choose to put in and edit and just to deal with being treated like a third-grade child, brought through airports, blindfolded, put in lockdown, and to deal with the people, to not eat, to do that to my body again. It just seems in no way worth it, given I can do what I want to do without it. And yeah, if you also remember, I see the before and after pictures of Spencer in Cambodia, and we forget how much that dude went through the ringer.
He went through it. Oh my God. Those photos just it's that the photo of him and the one of Russell are the two I remember showing the body differences. Oh my God.
So yeah, so suffice it to say, in this moment, I think his attitude has maybe changed in the past few years, where he is more than happy with the path he is on right now. His life is fine, and so I think we'll have to pass on him for 50, much like he probably would.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, let's touch upon another person who sat next to Spencer at the final three in Cambodia. Because Tasha, I feel like, unlike some of these other people we're speaking about, kind of went on with her life after Cambodia. I think she owns like a Chick-fil-A right now. But what do you think about Tasha? Would she or should she return for a third time?
I personally want her to. Like I really love watching her on both seasons of Survivor. She also went on the Challenge, if I recall, Challenge USA.
Yeah, she was
season
on the
1.
Challenge USA season 1.
So I love seeing that. I've always been a Tasha fan since we're watching the first season. My family and I all loved her. So I will say this is my own personal bias. I would love to see her on 50 play again. But yeah, no. So how many did she win immunities in Cagayan?
Yeah, she won 3 immunities, I believe.
She won 3, right? Yeah, I remember like she had like a really good appearance on the season. I don't think she won any on Cambodia. But yeah, no, she had like I think she played an incredible game. I don't think she was on the wrong side of the vote until her vote out in the merge of Cagayan. I'll try to do some research on her, but I forget the exact stats there. But she had an incredible game in Cagayan. Ended up being a finalist in Cambodia, 0 finalist in the end alongside Spencer. But like I said, both appearances, she has a very high average placement as well. Hers being what I want to say 4.
Yeah, 4.5 because she was 6 and 3 or 6 and 2, yeah, I guess
4.
technically.
Like one of the highest average appearances in Survivor. Behind Spencer, behind Parvati, behind just a few people. But no, I really love her game. Both times she played, I would personally love to see her again. 50, I think she's a very compelling individual, very compelling character. And also, how old would she be if she played again?
So she would be, if she were to play again, 47.
47. I'd love to see that. Like there aren't
47.
Like 47. There aren't too many. Like I haven't seen. When's the last time we had we don't cast too many like women like in like late 40s or whatever. Super often. I'd love to see that. I think this is 50. Like I said, it's gonna be older average age. I'd love to see Tasha play again. Something like she did the challenge as well. She's still like able to do that. She can do Survivor. So this is someone I personally would love to see again. Like I said, family and I've always been a huge fan of her. So this is just me personally. I would personally really enjoy seeing Tasha play 50 again. See how she's good. Like she's moved on with her life and like done a lot of things there. But I'd love to see how she that would appear on the screen. But how do you feel?
I mean, I really like Tasha from the very beginning when, again, she seems to be one of these people that just is so infuriated at the idea of Garrett insisting that they call like a tribe meeting and have an open forum as to who to vote out, that she helps turn the tribe to keep Jtia in the end, to her sort of being alongside Spencer as like one of the main 2 underdogs, and that she was actively targeted and won, key immunities to keep herself safe in the game. Her Cambodia edit weirds me out so much because it was so strong in the beginning, especially when they have that sort of, I think Steven called it like tribe mitosis, where they split from 2 tribes into 3, and she was on Angkor, which was, again, you speak about those disaster tribes, and she was one of the main dictators as to what was happening in the moment. And then she just kind of disappears for the post-merge, and at least the perception is like, oh yeah, she's just going along with what Spencer and Jeremy are doing. And obviously I would imagine she had more agency in the moment, but it was just such an odd portrayal on Natasha that we had seen for like the previous season and a half that I think I wouldn't say it soured viewers' perception of her, but I think it just kind of made people say, looking back, like, oh yeah, and Tasha was there too.
I think soured is it. Like I remember the reaction at the time, people were just like, this is not the same person. Like the edit did,
exactly.
Like, opinion did sour on her for sure. Like you can say that.
So it's tough, but from a production perspective, I'm not sure if they would look to Tasha specifically, especially out of this cast. I would say in my head, I probably have like a few tiers of returnees from this season. Tasha would be like probably a tier 2 for me. Like I wouldn't be surprised at it, nor would I be mad at all to see her back. But just for various reasons, I have a tough time picturing in my head her actually coming back for time number 3.
Yeah, I'm biased. I want her back so much, but I realistically, I do kind of agree she's probably in that realm of who production itself would call.
Well, listen, you spoke about the challenge. Let's talk about a challenge champ and a future season Survivor champ as well. Let's talk about Sarah, or Lacina, she was referred to by Jeff on her way out, because Sarah, I mean, we talk about the cocksure energy of somebody like Garrett. Sarah is the president in the merge. She's the one with all the power, and she gets absolutely decimated by her former allies, by being the one to get turned on, becoming the first member of the jury. She comes back for Game Changers and plays, in my opinion, one of the strongest post-merge games I have ever seen. where the only time she's ever in danger is at the final 6, where she got that legacy advantage due to the crafty work she provided in getting information from Sierra and subsequently voting her out. And yes, was it a game that everyone wasn't happy with her by the end with? Of course, but she curated it to sit next to 2 guys that luckily the jury liked even less. And so her strategy ends up winning the day. She comes back for Winners of War, where you would think on paper, okay, there's no way that she can repeat the Sarah Lacina charm that she did last time. And she does. She gets along really well with people. We see the fashion shows, we see the hair braiding, we see that she gets super close with people to the point that one of the reasons why Tony cuts Sophie is because she was getting so close to Sarah. And we see her get to that final 4 where had she beaten Tony through this incredibly emotional culmination of their 3-season arc, she makes it to the end and she probably wins and she becomes a 2-time winner. She goes on anyway to become a challenge champion, sort of with an asterisk associated to it. Let's not talk. Yeah, she won. We won't talk about that shit show. She has also come back for another season of the challenge. I had a really tough time doing research to try to figure out if she would want to come back. Sarah admitted in her Winners of War preseason interviews that she did not want to go back for season 40, that she really felt done with the show after she had won the game because she felt really bad about how she was perceived in Game Changers, right? That essentially it's like, we'll vote for you, but we don't feel good about it. And that actually did hurt her as someone who did make personal bonds out there. So considering that the vast majority of the cast of Winners of War, with the exception of maybe Tony, did not love their time out there and certainly did not leave with more friends than they came in with, I don't know if Sarah would necessarily want a 4th time at bat, especially considering that she's won already and she nearly won again.
Right. Like it can really only go down from like winning, coming back, and almost winning and losing to like your number 1 ally in Firemaker and seeing him win. So it's one of those things where like, and I think a lot of winners and Winners of War like have that same common theme of their experience was worse, which is you're gonna have a worse experience in winning naturally. Somebody soured it up, but let's be honest as well. A lot of people probably say like they wouldn't return, and then they get the call, and it's just like, oh my god. So it's a possibility where she could return if asked. But yeah, no, it's intriguing. Like I said, I know we're talking this is Cagayan, but I think it's more of like the Game Changers gameplay we want to talk about. Extremely dominant performance on Game Changers. Like top 5 winning game by far, if in possibly 3, in my opinion at all. Like it's absurdly insane how much control she had over that season.
Yeah.
And I was watching like some clips of her back, and so like some of the what was it? The I'm trying what was like I said, the legacy advantage maneuver was incredible. Trying to get that from Sierra. The surviving again, this was more of like I think what Troyson called it out, but the steal a vote shenanigans.
Yeah, the non-transferable vote steal where Sari tries to take her vote steal.
Yeah, that was interesting. But like so many things like in that season went her way, and it wasn't luck. It was like she had control over the season. So it was very impressive. I said the Cagayan, like she got voted out at her first tribal, I think, at Cagayan, right? I don't think she ever went to tribal.
No, she went to tribal once before. It was the Alexis Tribal Council was the first and only one she went to.
Yeah. One tribal and then got voted out at Citizens Emergence. But yeah, no, I think like I said, it's possible that they call her, but at the same time, it's one of those like her story arc kind of like it had like her and Tony's arc had a nice little bow on it at the end there. So like they could call her back, could not. It's one of those like up in the air in terms of like what production would do.
It's tough because like, do you have to have both back because they've only been on Survivor seasons with each other? You know, can they even exist without each other on Survivor?
Right. So
I guess she did it with Challenge, so he thought like, okay, I'll do it with the traders now. Now we can legally separate and do our own thing.
Right. But no, that was she's a very good, incredible Survivor player. So like, if they did call her, if she was on 50, I wouldn't be upset.
Well, let's talk about some of our one-time players here.
Yes.
I gotta start with Trish.
I almost started with her in this section in general. Because
it is a crime that Trish Hegarty has not been brought back. She is such a force. She is such a big character. She has that big Boston broguish personality. She is somebody who is not afraid to get scrappy, considering that she's the one that got into this big argument with Kass that caused Kass to flip her off as she was leaving, had Kass calling her Skeletor at a certain point. When Tony ends up voting her out, she delivers one of the more scathing final tribal council performances that we can remember, even though it went viral when somebody put like the big lip filter on Trish at a certain point. I don't know if you remember that, Dwight, on TikTok.
I don't have TikTok. I did not see that.
It's very funny. I recommend people check it out. But she also mentioned that I think Trish is a very underrated player in this season. Like, we talk about the chaos that was Tony, the calm was Trish. And I think Tony was so successful in this season because he had someone like Trish to either like keep him in check or sort of play cleanup a little bit and be like, okay, Tony's going to bulldoze his way through and come up with this big plan. Let me like finesse the details a little bit. I'll be the assistant to kind of follow up with the actual details past the big ideas that Tony has. I mean, we say that Tony was the one to sort of cause his first blindside in the Cliff Robinson vote, but Trish is the one to really fall head over heels in love with LJ at that swap and is like, oh, I want to keep him now. Let's get rid of Cliff instead. Trish from the edit is the one who flips Kass at the merge. It's not Tony. It's not LJ. It's some of the stuff that Sarah's doing, the position that she's claiming. But Trish is the one to really meet Kass, who she had never met before, on her level and say like, hey, I know you don't feel regarded in your alliance right now. Why don't you come on over here where the water's warm? We'll take care of you. And so I think Trish is somebody that could do really, really well in this game and was for a long time before Tony low-key noticed that and got rid of her.
Yeah, so undoubtedly, I like to this day I feel like she wasn't like played against second chances. Like, what the hell's going on here?
I mean, there were so many Cagayan people on second chances ballot.
How was it? 4 of them on the ballot or 5?
Yeah, so 4 of them, and I believe all 4 made it. I don't think there were any Cagayan people who did not make the vote.
Right. But no, it was so when I was told I was doing Cagayan, the first person I thought of was Trish because she hasn't played again, and of the top 6, only person not to play, and as you said, extremely underrated player, controlling the game alongside Tony. Arguably the reason Tony's able to, not get immediately sniped by the rest of the people because he has Trish alongside him. The polar opposite in terms of like personality. You have Tony's chaotic storm going on, and Trish actually some intricate details of what we need to do, and please stop yelling at people constantly. So I think and Trish is someone who definitely could have won Cagayan for sure. She played a winning caliber game, and I would love to see her play again. She's someone who I'm not sure if like the whole universe agrees, but in my opinion, is someone who I need to see play again, personally, because I think she deserves that second chance. And this is someone who, like I said, ran the game alongside the winner, and was not given that same opportunity that the rest of the people in the top 6 were given. And someone I would love to see again. Now, how old would she be if she were to play in Contestants?
She would be 58 years old. But she's a Pilates instructor. She's clearly still very physically fit, as she was, which put her on the Braun tribe in the first place.
True. Call her. Put her on.
I completely agree.
100%.
And also, people ask if she still keeps up with the show. I'm looking on her Twitter now, and I did not realize that one of her most recent tweets is actually a retweet from me about the Survivor 45 finale. And she also tweeted, "Congratulations to Dee for an incredible win. You so deserve it." So suffice it to say, she is caught up with the new era. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, I imagine if they're looking for some sort of like legend season, they're going to turn to all the people that we just mentioned. But if you're looking for a Cagayan returnee who has yet to get a glance from producers for a second time around, Trish is number 1 with a bullet, in my opinion. And that is saying something considering some of the people we're going to get into.
I had Trish on my list. I have like 4. Trish was number 1. Like, you put her on. I don't care. Everything else, put Trish on regardless. So good to hear you had the same opinions I did.
So listen, we're already running pretty long, so I don't want to necessarily broad brush the beauties here. There's some alliteration for you, but I mean, talk to me a bit about overall thoughts on Jeffra, Jeremiah, LJ, Morgan. Would you want to see any of them come back for a second chance?
So when I was making my list, I didn't initially think of any of them immediately to return for 50. I don't think were any of them called for any future seasons. I have no idea.
I have to look it up. I think LJ may have gotten a call for
of the 4. I was leaning LJ.
Because LJ was very shocking at the time. Both that Tony outright starts the episode being like, 2 episodes beforehand playing the idol on LJ and LJ returning the favor, being like, I'm going to get rid of LJ today, and coming up with, again, random reasons as to why to do so. But like, LJ was the main narrator of the Beauty Tribe. It seemed like he kind of had that winner's edit of like, here's this middle of the road CP confessionalist who's set up to do really well, only to get his legs cut out from under him via Tony at the final 9.
I think of all the people, I think LJ was the one, like, in a different world. He has like, I think the Jeremy-esque edit in his first season, where he will, like, the narrator had a good winner's edit, gets cut earlier than people expect, and to come back and do well. So like of like the beauties, I'd say LJ is like the most likely in my eyes to come back or get
according to Reddit, LJ was considered for Game Changers but got cut.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that tracks. So yeah, like of the 4, LJ, he wasn't in like my initial like immediately calling back, but for sure, I wouldn't mind seeing LJ play again. For sure, he would be what, like 40 something, 42.
LJ would be 45.
Okay,
actually, same age as Jeremiah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I think of the 4, like I said, I don't think the edit focused on the beauty as a whole as much.
Except when it came to figuring out the science of chickens.
But yeah, like I think just like naturally, just by consequence of the edit, who ends up winning, how the end game progresses, they didn't get as much focus. So just like, all cascading effects of the edit determines who people want to receive come back, and those people get called back. Just all compounding effect. But I could see LJ coming back if they call it. Like, that's someone who I would be like a quote unquote random returnee for 50 itself, but like I also wouldn't mind at all,
Yeah, but that's the thing about this cast. It's like everyone has a moment, if you will, where you have Jeffress, this is a survivor nightmare, or like this ex-NFL cheerleader being personified, I think, as the beauty of the Beauty Tribe, and Cass complaining about how lazy she is. Jeremiah's big reveal of him being a secret male model, and unfortunately, I don't think anyone actually remembers his name as Jeremiah because everyone assumes his name is Jeremy from the fact that Tony said his name was Jeremy. So again, even the Beauty Tribe, which is definitely 3rd out of 3 in terms of like airtime and interesting characters on this season, still sported some people.
Yeah.
And let's continue to talk about them, as well as the Bronze and the Brains. And you would think, okay, we're at 50 minutes, like we can yada through this pre-jury, but we really can't.
We cannot.
Because as we work our way down here, we have Alexis Maxwell. We have the quitter of the season here in Lindsay Ogle. We have, of course, the late, great Cliff Robinson, Woo's #1 basketball player. I think he said he had his card. We have, of course, an agent of chaos in her own right in Jtia, who was able to outstay being targeted the first couple times before finally ending her run when the Brains Tribe lost for the 3rd time. We have Purple Pants badass Bryce Isaiah. We have the aforementioned Garrett Adelstein, this chiseled poker player who seemingly had everything going on in the first half of the premiere, and then it all fell apart in the second half of the premiere. And we had former Marlins owner David Sampson, who was determined the leader on the first day, sent Garrett purposely back to camp because he wanted to make him a close ally, and then was voted out immediately. So suffice it to say, a lot of big characters to talk about here, Dwight. But I think, listen, we are a Survivor podcast, but we're an RHAP podcast first and foremost. Dare we not start with Bryce himself and talk about him as a possible second chance candidate?
100%. This is someone, like, when I was making this list as well, Bryce was off to mind immediately of, I'd love to see him get a second chance for sure. He's like stayed in the community, which is great. Like he's a Survivor fan. This is someone who didn't like, and this is also me talking from experience, having been a player, having gone home quote unquote early pre-jury. And a lot of times, see people who go home pre-jury not stay involved in the community. They go on expecting a certain result, they don't get the result, kind of fade away from the community entirely. And I have a lot of respect for people who don't do that. Like, people stay involved. So for me personally, I do really want Bryce to return. I'd love to see him come back. But also in the game itself, right? I think he got voted out on how many 2-2-2 votes have there been in Survivor? Like on the
it's a good question. There aren't a lot of them.
There are not many. He's a rare victim of a 2-2-2. And he was the primary target in that record.
Yes, between him and Morgan,
Morgan, right. So yeah, and what was the exact reason he got targeted? I don't recall. Like, I was trying to watch it, but I didn't have the time to go watch it back. I think it was just like someone just wanted him gone, right? And it was like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I think maybe it was just a matter of like he was he was on the outs with Morgan, and maybe it's just that they tried to pull Jeremiah over, and maybe he was just perceived as like the more strategic of the two, and so he was the more threatening person to get rid of in that moment.
Right. But in a 6-person tribe, it's really just the first day or two matter so much. It's honestly, it's so random sometimes who goes home early on a 6-person tribe. Genuinely, I don't think there's something Bryce did quote unquote wrong. It's just he wasn't in the duo that happened to be in a group before. It just goes like that sometimes. I can't point to the reason like he did like social blunders, whatever. So yeah, I'd love to see him play again. I think he deserves that second chance, and I would really love to see him play a second time. But how do you feel about Bryce?
Oh, I mean, I absolutely love the guy. And look, is it wishful thinking that he gets the chance to play again? Absolutely. But this is a wish list after all.
Exactly.
And what I will also say is, look, we have certainly given some soft spots on the ballot to early boots, like Billy Garcia, like Zay Knight, those that have kind of stood the test of time when it comes to their status in Survivor history. And while maybe Bryce's time on Cagayan is not necessarily as eye-popping as those, even though he does have fun phrases like the talk of the town and ... And he immediately makes an impression when Robin Nicole finds his extended catalog of music, including, of course, Freak, before the season starts. Honestly, I think what really, really helped Bryce's case is what he's been doing behind the scenes. Of course, many fantastic Survivor alumni were involved in the Black Survivor Alliance, which were ones that really were able to champion the eventual diversity initiative that ended up coming into Survivor in the new era. And Bryce was one of these people that I think, from a social perspective, especially, was really putting a lot of these movements together, getting all these voices in one room and showing a uniform solidarity to get actual change to happen. On top of that, he is obviously now doing all these events with Wendell, to all these Survivor viewing parties. And I would imagine that he certainly has a good relationship with the show because of that he's hosting these weekly giant viewing parties for everybody around the country. And so I think Bryce has honestly gotten more eyes on himself in 2024 than he has back in 2014.
100% agree. And like to also speak on a point of the diversity initiative that he was like a big part of. And this is just me as a person saying this. Like there's a world like it's possible without them making this push, this initiative to get Survivor and CBS to make casting 50% like Black Indigenous people of color. There's a world I don't get cast for like years because like the spots for Black individuals was so much more limited before they started doing this. Like there's usually like 1 or 2 on a season.
Yeah, Bryce was the first openly gay Black man to play Survivor.
Right. Like some seasons literally have 1 or 2 Black folks on. And now they're doing this 50% initiative for all people of color. So like I cannot like recognize my own Survivor journey without them having done this before I even played. So in that world as well, I would love to see him play for that reason. Like without all their efforts in making this change, pushing CBS to change their ways, I don't play maybe as soon as I did. Maybe I don't play for years. Maybe I don't play at all. So I just have to put that out there for sure. Like that gratitude that I have, I need to just voice that.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for voicing that. I want to talk about Jtia as well, because Jtia, well, maybe like Bryce has more cachet off screen than on screen when it comes to his legacy on Survivor. Jatia's cachet is all on screen. I think some people regard her as like one of the biggest disastrous standouts of the disaster tribe, to the point that like when Spencer's voting her out, he says the fact that you're a nuclear physicist is genuinely scary. Jtia was a hot mess on the season. She's coming in with like architectural knowledge, trying to build the shelter. It doesn't work. She's trying to lead the Brain Tribe through these challenges. It doesn't work, to the point where she actually bungles a puzzle and loses a challenge for the Brain Tribe at one point. Again, she dumps the rice into the fire out of pure spite, thinking that she was gone, and she still stays. She is remembered in Survivor lore, the rice dumping especially, as like sort of not the I wouldn't even say like jumping the shark, but it is one of those like seminal moments in not only Survivor Cagayan, but like amongst Survivor disaster tribes. Not to mention, Jtia has gone through a whole heap of stuff since her time on the show. She has gotten married. She has had 2 children. She has been diagnosed with cancer and beat it. as well. In fact, I'm looking on her Instagram now, and there's like footage from her from like 6 months ago where she's like downhill skiing, like nothing happened to her. So you talk about somebody who has a story, who has definitely a lot of unfinished business in coming on to be like, I'm going to prove I'm not one of the worst Survivor players ever. There's a lot of there with Jtia, in my opinion. And the fact of the matter is, apparently, even though we say that they really capped with Cagayan on the ballot, Jtia was apparently close to getting on at one point.
On the ballot itself? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. No, yeah, so like I said, we all watched Cagayan. We saw, Jtia, the whole meltdown, whatever. But like I said, going through surviving cancer, beating cancer, and everything. And then also, I had the pleasure of meeting her in Chicago recently. Mm-hmm. She's such a lovely person. Like, I adore Jtia so much, getting to meet her, getting to talk to her. And like, this is someone who, like I said, that's a lot of like 10 years of growth or whatever from her appearance on Cagayan to now. This is someone who I think that second chance story arc playing Survivor again, if she wants to play again, I would personally love to see. So
yeah,
I think that's someone who has a lot of potential to,
And I think we did this for like the Distinct Moments podcast on Summer of Survivor, but Jtia also passes the friends test of, okay, do you remember this person? Oh, she's the one who dumped the rice in the fire. Yes. Like, she has that instant memorability, kind of like Alicia back in All Stars was the one who got in the fight about the chickens. And so that also helps, I think, her credibility in getting cast as well. So yeah, like you said, the list is growing tougher and tougher to parse down. I will also mention here some ages as well. Bryce is 38 and Jtia is 42. The last person I do want to mention who I would not put on the ballot given all these people we just have talked about, but is somebody that has been talked about amongst fans and apparently production as well, Alexis Maxwell. So Alexis was only 21 when she played. I think the most memorable thing people think about her when it comes to Cagayan is her twerking at a certain point. But she has stayed so active with the show. I remember there was a segment on RHAP back in the day called Alexis Maxwell Tweets, where, like Rupert, she was putting out the most generic tweets about the show. But the important thing is she was watching the show. Apparently, at one point, she was in consideration for Game Changers. I would imagine maybe filling that sort of hole that Haley and Sierra occupied of, like, again, young, attractive woman like we'd like to see on all these returnee seasons. I've seen fans randomly jockey to bring her back as well, that they feel like she missed out on a lot of potential, that she was eliminated. The brains ended up siding with Sarah and Jeremiah and Morgan and voting out Alexis instead when the Beauty Tribe kind of split apart. Do you have any thinking one way or the other as to whether you would want to see Alexis again?
She got my placement. I'd love to see her back. I support all 12 placers in 18-player seasons.
There we go. Who is in that club? I mean, it's all the Mergatory. Not even the Mergatory boots. Some of the Mergatory boots.
I support 12th place returnees. But for real, like, genuinely, like as I said before, staying active in the community. But also, like, her time kind of got cut short on like a random, like, not random, but like a split decision on a tribe. It's just unfortunate. And I think there's a lot of people who go in that position who could play. Like, Sarah Lacina went one round after and goes on to play a dominant game, right? Yeah. So what, 2 or 3 days of difference in gameplay? The one came back and wins. Why can't Alexis? So that's kind of where I'm at.
All right. Well, Dwight, let's start twerking here, as we got to figure out who's going to be on this ballot.
Oh, Jesus.
It's an embarrassment of riches right now, which makes sense because we do have $4 million between two of these contestants that we may possibly put on here. So let's start, I guess, with some easy ones.
There's no easy here. I'm going to get yelled at no matter who I leave off.
Oh, well, Dwight, welcome to the podcast, baby. I've been bored in this for like 5 weeks at this point.
Anyone tagging me on Twitter, you're getting blocked.
All right, so let's start with something. Give me just one name that you want as like your locked-in guarantee to be on the ballot.
Trish.
Okay, I completely co-sign. I think Trish is the rare person on this season who hasn't returned that I think would be absolutely fabulous if she were to do so. And so I am fine throwing her in here. I believe she's the only person from the final 6 of Cagayan to not return as well. So let's just make that a nice even spread. I will put Tony on here as well. I think that, yes, Tony would come back for time number 4. He's only 50 years old at this point. And again, I've been putting people on under the guise of it being a possible Legends season, and I don't see a reason to not put Tony on when I put all these other 4, 5, 6-time players on, possibly.
Fair. Yeah, I just didn't know. It seemed like I in my head, like, do I put on the person who's won twice or not? But I think you can't deny that at all. I would personally put Bryce on as well on this list for 100%. I support all pre-jurors. And also, like I said, as I said before, he's been very back in this community. Like had watch parties alongside CBS before. Like, this is someone who I think has a good chance of returning, and I think would do amazing with that second chance.
So I completely agree. And I think, let's try to avoid the maelstrom of comments as possible by being an RHAP podcast that does put Bryce on the ballot immediately. I mean, the bad news is that there's one spot up for grabs at this moment. And I'm between the brainy women here. I'm between Kass and I'm between Jtia, with maybe like a little skosh of Tasha on the side. So it's tough. I would imagine there will be enough of a groundswell support that whoever doesn't get on this time, there'll be enough of, put this person on, that we can just throw them on when we do the wild cards at the end of this. So
we can put them all on now, right? Clearly.
Yeah. Oh yes, of course, Dwight. I'll break the rules only for you. So, God, gut check. Who would you pick right now between Jtia and Kass?
Kass.
I agree. I think Kass making 2 runs, and while Jatia's run is absolutely iconic and she has a hell of a story to return, I think that,
like, my heart says Jtia, but I'm just realistically, I think Kass has a
I agree. But look, I think it's a when, not an if, that Jtia is going to be on this list. It's just for the formalities. I want it to come out with 3 to 4 people, and then we'll come back around and put her on. And who knows if there's any other Cagayan people that people
I will start the campaign myself during the wild card thing for Jtia and Tasha. I don't care.
There we go. As well. And who knows, maybe if we receive word officially from Sarah Lacina about whether she would want to come back, if there are any other random Cagayan people that come out of the woodwork and are like, oh yeah, I actually like to do this again. If Wu wants to do it, taking a break from all the commercials that he does, I am more than happy to throw so many people on this list. I mean, I believe Cagayan is tied for the most amount of returning players from their season with 6. I think only Australia has it beat. So I am more than happy to put multiple Cagayaners on here. Again, I just want to make a delineation, try to bring some sort of semblance of order to this. But yeah, I think for those of you that are upset that people like Jtia, Tasha, etc. did not get on the first time, I think there's a fair chance you're going to be able to vote for them.
Yes, please vote for them. I want them all on. I don't like making only 4 choices. Why did I sign up for Cagayan? Why did I do this to myself?
You made this choice, right? This is what you signed up for. All right. God. Well, let's back off to something easier, Dwight. This is a free option, so you can choose between anybody here. No restrictions. But if you could pick somebody from Survivor Cagayan that you would want to appear on a show other than Survivor, who would it be and why?
Ooh, on a show other than Survivor. Let's see here.
If I'll throw out an opening bid, Kass and Trish on The Amazing Race.
Oh, they're going home first. Or
yeah, but it'll be a fantastic first episode.
Like,
Kass's appearance fee will be fantastic.
They are fighting in the airport or they're winning the season, and I don't care which.
Real Alpha Omega, yeah.
My first thought was Traders, and I'm trying to figure out who I'd like to see on the Traders.
Well, you're going to see one very quickly.
Outside of the one who's already going. For Traders, honestly, I'd say like Sarah or Kass would be fun on that show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they sometimes, like the Traders and the Mold, they like to bring in people that like have backgrounds in some sort of law or justice as well. I think Kass on the Mold in particular would be freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm. No, that'd be good. The challenge, we've seen Tasha on the challenge before. I'm not sure if, I think of the people who do challenge, like Wu possibly could do it. LJ Jeremiah, I'm not sure if they call any of them for it, but that's someone
I could see Wu on the challenge could be.
Like Challenge USA, not like the main challenge where they're like 20-year-olds trying to hook up all the time and drink. But like the Challenge USA 3 is more their speed, I feel like, because they're all like, they're not in their 20s anymore. No one on this cast in their 20s anymore. So,
I kind of, and this is blasphemous to say, I kind of want to see Wu on Big Brother. Like, I just feel like he has that kind of wacky energy that personifies a Big Brother character. Like, imagine him in the diary rooms being like, all right, so for this competition, we're gonna have to stick slime down our pants and pull it out. Sounds wacky, but I gotta do it.
Why do I
Plus,
watch Big Brother?
he already pulled a Cody Calafiore in the past, so he has nowhere to go but up.
Fair, but like, do you think he's still the same person? Because it's been like 10 years, right? I think the exact same personality. Like, would he be a Big Brother? Like, Woo and Cagayan Woo, 100% put on Big Brother. 10 years later, Woo, maybe? I'm not sure.
I also feel like Woo is a nickname that you see on a Big Brother player. I mean, I guess we had Boo in Survivor, so it's not too dissimilar, but it does feel like, you guys could call me Woo.
Yeah, I mean, we literally had, what, red and blue last season.
Red and blue, and they could do like a nice little slide whistle sound effect every time his name is mentioned, like Jingle Bells with Christmas.
Oh god, what other shows am I missing? Okay, we talked about Amazing Race, talk about Traders Challenge, Big Brother. But also, actually, would Tasha do Big Brother? Well, I don't know if she would do Big Brother.
I don't know if she'd do Big Brother. I think it might be too long, but I'd love to see her on Big Brother as well.
Yeah,
do you remember when Jeff Varner was caught talking across the mat during a challenge, and she just sticks her arms up, being like, "I smell a rat.
We got a rat.
We got a rat."
Great. Oh my god. I'm trying to think of other shows, but I think those are the ones that come to. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I mean, I don't know what LJ's dating situation is like, but I feel like him or Jeremiah could be on like one of these random dating shows. Doesn't even have to be The Bachelorette. It could be like one of these Perfect Match, Love is Blind Netflix shows.
I don't know what Perfect Match or Love is Blind are about.
Oh,
but
you sweet summer child.
I only just started watching Love Island this season because I told it was good, and I am so locked into this current season of Love Island.
Okay, so maybe Jeremiah on Love Island?
Possibly, but also isn't all the Love Islanders like in their early 20s? They're like my age at this point.
Yeah, but I'm sure Jeremiah, he is 45, but I'm sure he still looks good. He cleans up well.
Oh, for sure. So Love Island 40 plus edition. Surely that's a thing they'll do.
They need the Golden Love Island.
The Golden Bachelor I've heard was a hit. So
yeah, I think it needs to happen. Love has no age restrictions. We did have restrictions on this ballot, unfortunately, but we have put through 4 individuals from Survivor Cagayan to Dwight's chagrin. We have Tony, who is 50, Kass, 52, Trish, 58, and Bryce, 38. But I'm sure there'll be much more to come, including tomorrow. Yeah, including tomorrow when the hits keep on coming. I will be joined by Sasha Joseph to talk about Survivor San Juan del Sur, a season that perhaps in the moment was not seen to be as legendary and stack up to, again, how great Cagayan was, but I think has gained a lot of respect and positivity in the 10 years since, especially considering we have seen, once again, a number of people come back from this. Dwight, from your perspective, who from San Juan del Sur would you want to see come back for their second, third, fourth time?
Ooh. Well, they've called what's his name before and he didn't accept, right? John, was it?
The story with John was that they literally called him and he just didn't pick up the phone and he let it go to voicemail and he did not listen to voicemail until it was too late. But they did have interest in him for Cambodia.
He missed the damn voicemail?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez. I missed my call for Survivor and they left me voicemail. It's like, I was like, call them back right now. I was panicking when I missed that.
Yeah, you didn't want to be John Mish. You knew it.
Yeah, no, I was freaking out. I was taking an exam when they called me. Of all the time to call me back. Yeah, John's first one came to mind. That hasn't. I'm thinking like I'm trying to think of not winners like Jeremy.
Yeah, you're all anti-legends right now with your ideal 50 cast.
Yeah, my first thought is second chance because I go not winners, but Natalie, Jeremy, John. I can't think of anyone else coming like just jumping on immediately.
All right, well we have plenty of people to go into. You won't get that out of me, Dwight, more because you'll hear from me tomorrow when I talk about it with Sasha Joseph.
I tried.
There we go. Always worth it. To quote Jeff Probst, snuffing Adam Klein's torch in Winners at War. That's going to do it for this edition of The Wish List. Dwight, it was no easy job, but you rose to the occasion and then some. Thank you so much for coming on. What would you like to plug for all the listeners out there?
I can plug my Twitch channel. Yeah, so I've been streaming games on the Clock Tower. Nigh weekly, almost more than weekly at this point. But at twitch.tv/doingmore. If you don't know what it is, Clock Tower is like a social deduction game. I say it's Mafia on steroids. Everyone has some kind of role, and it's very fun. And I say check it out, or check out any other channel that has this game. It's been super popular recently, and I think a lot of the reality folks it's in y'all's wheelhouse. Y'all like lying to each other, so come check it out.
No, I have become obsessed with it. It's my new favorite social strategy game because it does take the idea of mafia and werewolf, but it does give very specific roles that simultaneously twist your brain into a knot, yet gives you that satisfaction once it becomes a math equation that you can kind of figure it out. So check out what Dwight is doing. I've appeared on it. RHAP people have appeared on it. Former survivors and big brothers and amazing racers have appeared on it as well. So it is the perfect cross section. And who knows, maybe you're low-key farming people that might have what it takes to come back for Survivor 50 at the same time.
Sure, yeah. The joke, I think, because when I started doing this stream, it was before they announced 50, and I was like, why? Why would you announce it, return these publicly? And people were like, they're going to do like poker lines to your streams. Like, no, I don't want. I don't want people pre-gaming on my stream. Pre-gaming, I will shut it down. No, but it's just for fun because I like doing it. But it's a fun time. So listen, if someone on my stream ends up winning 50, I will take a cut.
There you go. Exactly. I'm not allowing you to pregame, but I will take all the credit for it, depending on.
I'll take credit for improving your lying abilities. Yes. So when they win 50, it is because of me and solely me.
All right. Well, we'll see if anybody tomorrow will make the 50 list and maybe be joining Dwight on a stream anytime soon, as I'll be joined by Sasha Joseph to talk through the cast of Survivor San Juan del Sur. Thank you all so much for listening to an extra special edition of The Wish List. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.